Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first 2018 Foreman Community Demo. As always, feel free to ask questions on IRC, the Foreman, on our Twitter, or on the YouTube live chat. And please remember to check the video quality in YouTube. It defaults to something that is not great for screen sharing, so change that if you want to see the demo better. We have a pretty diverse demo today. We're glad to have everyone back from holidays, and we'll have some updates about Discourse, fact filtering, new plugins, and more. So first update, Catello 3.5 is finally out. Thank you to everyone that gave feedback, open bugs, fixed bugs. We're glad to see this out. Discourse. For those of you who haven't seen the announcements, our mailing list are now migrated to Discourse. We talked about this in the last few demos. There was also a deep dive that Greg did showing the differences and talking about when the migration would be. We had a poll which pretty much agreed that the migration should be done. And on the 1st of January, it was actually migrated. There's links in our newsletters as well about from the announcement and about the deep dives and everything if someone wants to get updated. Also, thank you to class that noticed on IRC that we still have on this demo, there's still the link to the old mailing list. I'll make sure to fix that once we're done with the demo. As I mentioned last demo, we have a few events coming up. At the end of this month, there will be DevConf in Brno. You can find us there at our booth. Then in FOSDEM, we're going to have a joint booth with Overt. You'll find us in Building K on the first floor. That's 1 week after DevConf, so the first weekend of February. Right after that, we have config management in Ghent, where we also have our Foreman track there. The schedule for config management camp will be out soon. We already reached out to the speakers. We're waiting for a few more confirmations, and then we'll publicize the schedule itself. We'll also be having a community dinner on February 6th. We don't have a restaurant yet. Once we have one, I'll send out an email. And we're going to have a Foreman Construction Day again this year. It's going to be February 7th, so that's 1 day after config management camp finishes. In the exact same place, we'll have 1 or 2 rooms, and the schedule and everything else will be publicized very soon. So Daniel was supposed to start now. Daniel, are you back with us?
Yeah.
Okay. So Daniel has a few updates for us today. Let's start with the RSS blog notifications.
Okay, thanks, Ori. So the first thing that I'm going to show today is a feature that we've recently added. It's fairly simple. It's if you see the notifications button that we have also very recently added to Foreman. It's now getting...
Daniel, we don't see your screen if you're sharing.
Oh, okay. Give me a second. Okay, now you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was talking about the notifications button that we have introduced to Foreman relatively recently. I don't remember. I think it was 1.15. So now every time you run Foreman, it will fetch notifications from the Foreman blog automatically, so you can get updates about what's happening in the Foreman community, if a new version has come out, or anything like that. By default, this is going to fetch notifications once a day. So it depends. Like whenever you run Foreman for the first time, it's going to be 24 hours after that. And I was going to show you how to configure this in case you do not want these notifications because maybe your server doesn't have internet, or you want to get other stuff. There is a possibility to disable it here in Administer, Settings, Notifications tab, RSS Enable. You can disable it. Or if you have another RSS URL for maybe your company, for your company blog or whatever, you can also change it there. Now, another thing you could do, and I will increase the font here as well, is to fetch these notifications on a cron tab. Because by default, you're only going to have the option of one RSS feed at a time managed by Foreman. So in case, let's say you wanted to have your Foreman blog RSS notifications, and you also want to have some other blog notifications, what you would have to do is to run this task. You can put it on a cron or whatever. It's called RSS create notifications, and it has a few options that I'm going to go over very quickly right now. Okay, a little difficult to see. Okay, I think this is better. So the options that it has is the URL, the number of posts that you want to get in your notifications. You want to repost in case you want, because by default it's not going to fetch new notifications if there were already notifications for your older blog posts. So in this case here, I run it with repost, and it fetched notifications for the community newsletter for December twice. It's only because I did that. You can mark them as read here, and you can open them on the menu here. Oops. Yeah, and also you can restrict the audience, because by default it's going to send these notifications to every user in Foreman. You can restrict it to things like global or admin, where only admin users would get it. So that's all I have for RSS notifications. Not sure. You want to go back to the slides, or?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That looks really useful. So let's continue with the OpenStack v3 compatibility.
Okay. So v3, it's been a request for a couple of versions, especially right now on OpenStack. The Keystone API v2 is deprecated. Sorry, it's removed. It was deprecated for a few versions. So on new versions of OpenStack, you need to use the Keystone v3 API. So if you have a OpenStack installation and you want to know where the URL is, you just go to the left menu, API access, and it's the identity. Sorry, I'll increase it a bit. The identity endpoint here for the API. So that's what you have. What you got to use in Foreman. Now, when you create OpenStack compute resource, it's going to ask for the URL, your credentials, and it's also going to ask for a domain. You have the list of domains. Normally, when you install OpenStack, let's go here. Okay, so when you install OpenStack, you're going to get a file called Keystone RC admin, and that Keystone RC admin file contains the domain. Sorry, it's here, project domain name. There might be other ways of getting the domain. I'm not sure of them, so just saying you're going to need this this domain. Oh, okay. So it's also in here, the domain name. Once you have username, password, and the domain, you can just get any tenant. I only have one tenant here and create it. I could show how I create a new host, although it's basically the same as v2. Just let's see. Oh, one limitation that I forgot to mention that I just realized now is that on OpenStack now, it seems that in recent versions, you're going to need an availability zone every time. So don't forget to set it. So yeah, just create an availability zone. I can choose the network, the operating system, and it should be just fine. Okay. Yeah, you have all the options that you had before on the compute resource page. Okay. Should be fine now. Okay, it might take like 3 or 4 minutes, so maybe, or we can move to the next demo.
Yeah, no problem. I don't see any questions yet about what you've shown so far. They might come in later. So last thing is the pre-made role for registering hosts with the RHN.
Okay. All right. So there is, for people who are running Rails systems on Foreman and Catello, I'm sure some of you are aware of this Bootstrap script. It's in Catello client Bootstrap. The bootstrap.py script basically takes Rails systems that are in Red Hat Network Classic and migrates them to Satellite 6. So the one problem that you may face if you have to use this is that you're going to need a user that has permissions to create this host in Foreman and Catello. So what is coming on the latest version of Catello is a new role called register hosts here, which contains all of the options that you need to register a new host with Bootstrap. So
Daniel, we're not seeing your screen again.
No?
Nope, we lost it.
Okay, I bet. Yeah, I was just showing the repository before. In case you're interested, is Catello client Bootstrap. If you have to migrate hosts from RHN to Catello. So we have this this role called register hosts. It contains all of the options that you may need to register a new host. So you can just create a user, call it maybe Bootstrap user, assign it this register hosts role, and it should be ready to go. you should be ready to use it to anything that Catalog Client Bootstrap is able to do right now. And that's all I have, I think. Any questions or?
No questions yet.
Oh, well, as you can see, the host is created here just to show that it actually worked.
Thanks, Daniel. Moving on to Shimon to talk about fact filtering.
Hey, so of course, by Murphy's Law, I have completely ruined my Puppet environment, so there is not too much to actually demo today, since I'm working on facts, but I can show you at least the settings that are actually triggering it. So we are talking about fact filtering. I'll share my screen now, so you should see the settings page.
Yeah, we
Is it
see
true? Yeah, great. Okay, so as you already know, we had a setting that actually filtered out unnecessary interfaces during fact import. So if you have a new host that is reporting to Foreman, and that host is reporting a lot of interfaces, like in the case of Docker interfaces and stuff like that, you had an option to actually filter them out. Here it is, ignore interfaces with matching identifier. This is the old setting, which still works and is still used by Foreman, but I have added another one, which is called exclude pattern for facts stored in Foreman. This one is the new one. It will actually filter out the facts that match these patterns. So what it does actually, it doesn't store those facts into Foreman facts table at all. So by default, I'm putting there the interfaces list, the interfaces facts actually that are filtered out anyway. But you can actually expand and shrink this list as you see fit for your system. Beware, if you are not storing the fact in Foreman, you will not be able to use it in trends or parameters or whatever. So basically, Foreman will be ignoring this fact completely. But it should make your fact names and facts tables much smaller and reduce your memory footprint. There is also a rake task added to Foreman that actually cleans up all facts from your database that already are there. So if you're upgrading your Foreman, you will already have all those facts that you don't like. You can run rake facts cleanup, and you will have those facts removed from your database, even for hosts that have already reported them. That's pretty much it for it.
Thanks, Shimon. Maybe we could get a demo of that next time with a working Puppet environment. I don't
Hopefully.
see any questions right now, but Daniel had a question on IRC. Could you repeat the answer?
Yeah. So the question was about the destroy host option that is in here. It's part of the register hosts role for Catalog Bootstrap. So this option is needed sometimes because when you use the force option in Catil Bootstrap, it deletes the previous host to re-register it again. So that's the reason why it's there. By the way, if you want the reasons, an explanation of why each permission is needed, you can go to the repository README. There's a section permissions which explains all of them in detail.
Thanks. Moving on to Adam, who's going to show us a new plugin, Foreman Probing.
So, hello, let me share my screen. Today I would like to introduce a new Foreman plugin, which was created as part of my master's thesis. And let's get right to it. It's called Foreman Probing, and it mainly, well, as the name suggests, it learns Foreman how to probe devices on the network. So it's a bit like discovery, meaning you can get an already existing machines into Foreman, but with probing, you can do all of it right from Foreman. So here I have a completely fresh Foreman, no hosts, no subnets, and I have some already existing machines. And I want to get them in Foreman to run remote execution or Ansible or something against them. So I go to Monitor and Network Scans, run a new scan, and this is the input interface for probing. I can specify how the scan should look, what it should do, and how it should be targeted. The first kind, the direct one, is that I can just enter an IP address or range or subnet and it will scan it. If I have subnet in Foreman, which I don't right now, it would take the subnet and scan it. If I had hosts, I could provide a search query to match the hosts and it would take their IP addresses and scan them. Or I could do a so-called proxy scan. What it does is that it takes the IP addresses on the smart proxies interfaces, selects the private ones, and scans their networks. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a TCP scan. Otherwise, I could choose UDP or ICMP. And I want to scan ports 22, which is SSH, 80, which is HTTP, and 443, which is HTTPS. Now I trigger the scan, and it runs for a while. While it runs, this page refreshes itself, and then it presents us with the result. While it runs, we can cancel the task, we can inspect the task, refresh the page, and run the scan again. Should be done anytime soon, I hope. Oh, and here we go. It actually discovered 5 hosts on belonging to the proxy subnets. So let's pick, for example, Nginx and look at its details. We can see that it has a name, it has an IP address, it has a MAC address, it's assigned to a location and organization. Because we couldn't determine how the interface is called from the outside, it just picked unknown 0, and it assigned it to a subnet, which is created as part of the scan. So now we have hosts and we have a subnet. There's a new tab in the host details called Open Ports, where we can see that this host has port 22 opened and port 80 opened. When the fun part begins, it also populated some facts. And the interesting ones are in ports. So we go ports, TCP, and let's pick 80. We can see that the port is opened, and it is opened because a TCP connection could be established there. And if we take a look at the service, it is HTTP. And we can see that the product is Nginx, so it was able to determine what web server is there, and that it was really scanned, not just calculated from a table or something. And we can use the nice things Facts provides for us, like view chart. And we can see that there are 5 hosts. 20% of them, so one host, runs Nginx. One of them runs Apache, and the rest doesn't run anything on the port 80. If I go back to TCP and 22, which is SSH, and find all hosts which have the port opened, we can see a bunch of them. So I'll just copy this search query and run a remote execution job against them. So to be able to further determine their fully qualified domain names or something, I will run a script which will print all of their host names, their IP addresses and interfaces, and uname-a. With remote execution, I would have to have public keys deployed to the remote hosts. As part of working on my thesis, I also added a patch to remote execution, which allows to use a password instead of the public key. So I just provided the password here and run the job. We can see that it finished. And let's pick, for example, snap30. And I can see that snap30 is called snap30.satellite63.CentOS7.lxc, and that the interface name is called ETH0. So I can go to the host again and edit it, put the correct name there, and correct the interface name. Save it. And now when I run a scan against this host again, let's make it quick, so just ICMP. We should see that the results of the scan should be matched to the already existing host, so we won't get duplicates or something. Yes, and here we go. It found the host and mapped the results to it. And that's probably about the functionality. I'd just like to say that the version 0.0.1 was released less than an hour ago, so it's really fresh. And that's about it.
Way to go on the last minute release. This is really great to see. So let's move to Thomas with the API Py Diff tool.
Hello. Today I would like to show you a simple tool that I created, and it's useful for comparing versions of API Py documentation. It's called API Py Diff, and it's distributed as gem, so you can install it via gem install easily. As I've said, it's quite simple. It takes just 2 files and behaves nearly as normal diff. And the files should be exports of the API documentation in JSON. You can download them from your live Foreman instance. The README-MD briefly describes how you can do that. You can find it in the API doc.json on your server. So for this demo, I pre-created 2 exports of some historical versions of Foreman with some plugins installed. Now I will show you how the Diff works with that. Or maybe before that, just to show you what's in the file. It's just the export of the docs in JSON. So the tool takes 2 parameters, adds to the files, it prints the differences and marks what's new, what is changed, and what was removed. It prints all the resources and its actions, and if there was no change, it just skips the parameters. If something in the action has changed, it marks the action with yellow label, and then the parameters are simple diff of YAML formatted attributes of the parameters, so you can easily see what has changed. You see that in the activation keys content override action, there was 1 parameter removed, and there is some more changes. When the whole action is removed, it just marks it as removed and doesn't print the details. And when a new one is added, it just prints all its attributes. I can't find anything like that right now. Here, yeah, there's a whole new RF reports resource because the second instance of Foreman had the OpenStack plugin installed, and in such case it prints all the parameters. And there's one more option called stats, and with that it enriches the output with some gather statistics so that you can see what resources were added and what was removed and what was changed without the specific changes. So this is useful mainly for users when they want to see what changed between updates of their plugins if they're using the API, but also for developers that want to make sure that nothing changed unintentionally between the versions. And unless you have some questions, that's about it that I wanted to show you.
Thanks. This looks really useful, especially after I broke the API at one point. This would have been helpful then to know it was unintentional. We're a little low on questions today, but for anyone that wants to ask questions later, you can find us on IRC, the Foreman, on the comments of the demo on YouTube, the new mailing list, the new mailing form actually on Discourse that I will add to the links of this demo, on Twitter, and that's it. So thank you to all the presenters. Thank you for everyone watching, and I'll see you next time.